Very much enthusiastic and remote people as you are. Welcome to Mark Stills in Town, which is not this time involving me actually going to a town. It's with an audience watching on their laptops. You are there, aren't you, lovely people? Yeah, 40 years ago, if you tried to imagine what entertainment would be like in 2020, you'd have probably gone, oh, I expect you'll be at the multi-sensory cinematathon, where you can actually feel that you're with Meryl Streep on a camel and Brad Pitt is actually punching you in the face. But in fact, you're going, let's go in the corner of a kitchen with a 9-inch screen, because that's where we can get a signal and we can watch a bloke in an empty room ranting like he's mental. But we have learnt some things. It'd be wrong not to be positive. We have learnt some things from 2020, from the lockdown. For example, we've learnt how to fund a health service, which is not the old-fashioned way of collecting taxes and distributing it. Now we know the way to fund a health service is to get a 99-year-old bloke to walk round the garden. That's so much more. So, in the Radio Theatre in London, I'm talking to people around the country, and this episode is going to be about going back to towns that I've been to before. And the brilliant thing about going around so many towns is just everywhere you go, there's just this brilliant sense of community, that there are things that people know about that town, the little quirks, the things that are just for them. And if you do go back there, places change. For example, I used to do, a long time ago, a joke in Belfast when I went there, back when the Troubles were on. And they've got these amazing murals. You've probably seen them on the news if you've not been there. And they're all to do with the fighting and the history, but they are amazing. There's usually some hunger striker or a King William on his horse or something. But so I used to have a little joke when I was in Belfast where I'd say, oh, it's amazing, all them murals. It's like you've got a whole city of Rolf Harris's running round the place. Little pots of paint and a brush going up to walls going, can you give it a little balaclava there and a little Armalite rifle? Can you tell what it is? It is a little fella from the IRA. When I wrote that joke, I can have had no way of knowing that one day it would be controversial because of Rolf Harris. How could I know that? But it's changed, because I went to Belfast a little while ago and there was an open-top bus there, a guided tour bus thing, like the sort of thing that goes around London and shows you Buckingham Palace and all that, in Belfast. And I was with my son and stuff, and I said, oh, we've got to have a go on this. And I thought, oh, they'll skirt round the tricky issues, won't they? They're bound to do that. But as it set off, the bloke picked up his microphone, he said, right, I'd like to welcome you on board this Rain City guided tour of the city of Belfast. He said, now, unfortunately, where we're starting here is right by what I consider to be the ugliest building in the whole of the city centre. And then he said, now, you think with our history, someone would have the explosives to blow it up. So, some towns have benefited from the lockdown. And this is where I would like to introduce tonight's live Zoom audience, especially those of you who are not just any random audience, but you're from one of the towns this programme has visited once before who have benefited from the lockdown, because you are from Barnard Castle. A town that has been transformed through the lockdown. The government said that they were going to improve the north, and they've certainly done it with you. Because we recorded one of these shows in Barnard Castle in 2015. Now, the thing is, I'm going to play a little clip here, because sometimes you can say something that doesn't quite last in the programme. It goes a bit out of date. I doubt whether anything I've said has gone as much out of date as the opening line that night. Now, one of the amazing achievements of Barnard Castle is hardly anybody knows you're here. Well, things change, and it went on. It's like a town that's brilliant at hide and seek. There's no railway, barely a bus comes through. Even people from Durham aren't sure where this is. I reckon the population here is made up of all the people who've disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle. That's not really stood the test of time, has it? Because, as we know, Dominic Cummings, the Prime Minister's personal advisor during a time when everyone was ordered to stay at home, was found to have driven to Barnard Castle and explained he'd gone there to test his eyes because he was worried about his eyes, so he did what anyone would do. He put his wife and child in the back of a car and drove them to Barnard Castle. So this is where I would like to speak to Peter, if you're there, Peter.
I am indeed.
Hello, Peter. So, is Barnard Castle different now? Because it must have been like up until this year, if you told most people where you were from, most people probably wouldn't have known. Have you noticed a difference?
Oh, very much so, yeah. Lots of people are coming to the town.
Because of that?
I think so, yes. But when they come, they're taking selfies all over.
So it's been a fantastic boost.
Yeah, there's eye test signs all over the place as well.
And that's the sign as you're going into the town?
That's right, yes. The word Barnard Castle, with a big B at the top and a small E at the bottom, to test whether you can see things or not. One of the local printers had some made, and he was telling me the other day that he sold 200 of them.
Famous town in Britain now, Barnard Castle. There'll be like little villages in Spain where people haven't heard of London. They go, yes, but we know England because he did the Barnard Castle. When the lockdown ends, you're going to be mobbed. There's going to be coachloads of people with guides going, on your left, you can see the riverbank where Dominic Cummings sat with his family. On the right is where he said to his wife, oh, bollocks, I think somebody recognised me. But it's touching, Barnard Castle. It's touching when a town gets its moment, and this was yours, and it binds everyone together, doesn't it? Oh, we're in the news. And you often hear of these people going, oh, there's no sense of community anymore. They're like they used to be. But I don't think that's true. It's just sort of people who think everything was better back in 1966. Oh, in those days you could go on holiday, you could leave your doors open for 2 weeks, leave all the windows open. When you got back, the neighbours would have been round to put a couple of cup final tickets on the bed for you. But not now. But I think there's even more of a sense of community now than there used to be, because sometimes what binds people together is the useless things in their town. So when I'm doing one of these programmes, the worst thing, say going to a museum, the last thing you want is to go to a museum and it to be mildly interesting. My favourite one was in Monmouth in Wales, and it was marvellous, but it was free to get in. There was just a woman there behind a desk, and I went, all right, as I got there, all right. And then I got in, and there was just nothing. Just... No, I can't just leave, that's rude. There's a sword. There was one sword. I thought I'll have a look at the sword. Fair play to him. It's definitely a sword. And then another bloke come in, and he went over here and he was having a look at a coin. Honestly, this is true. And then the phone rang, and the woman behind the desk, she picked it up. She said, I'll have to call you back. It's gone absolutely crazy in here. And rude people are brilliant. When you go to a town and you get such a sense of it, when people are rude, you think, oh, that's what you want from it. I went to Taunton in the summer. It was a beautiful day. I thought this is the most English day you could have. And I got an ice cream and I went and sat and ate it on a bench in the churchyard. And I thought, this is as English as you could possibly. And then the vicar came out and I thought, this couldn't be any more English. And then the vicar come up and went, get out. Well, he said, get out, this is a bloody private churchyard. This is that bench belongs to the church, not for you to sit there drinking ice cream all day, mate. Get out. And I did. I said to him, I can see why you're the vicar, mate, because the New Testament's full of stories of Jesus going around Galilee, going, get out, this is private property. But he won me round, the vicar, because he said, don't you talk to me about bloody Jesus. promoting Somerset. On New Year's Day, I was in Weston-super-Mare and I went into a newsagent's and I didn't catch the whole conversation. So all I heard, there was a woman, she must have been about 19, and she was talking to her mate about 11 in the morning on New Year's Day, and she just said to her mate, and then right on a stroke of midnight, the fireworks went off and he proposed. I said, "You got to get divorced first, you muppet." Little was I to know at that point that that would be the highlight of my year. But every town has this brilliant shared sense of history. My favourite opening to a book ever, right? Never mind Dickens. My favourite opening to a book ever was in a book called A History of the Railway in Didcot. And the opening line was, I shall read it in full, "This book is in no way a history of the railway in Didcot." I had this book about Abergavenny, and they're so proud. In Abergavenny, they've got these mountains. There are, I think it's 7 mountains at the back of Abergavenny, and they're very, very proud of it. And one of the mountains is called the Skirrid, and the book says, "Many writers have compared the Skirrid to the mighty Swiss Matterhorn, and there is a similarity in the isolated situation of their peaks, though in height there is a difference of 13,000 feet." And sometimes there's more to a place than I realised when I did a programme there. So I went to Lewes in Sussex, where they have this mad firework and bonfire night. Now, this is nothing comparable to anything that happens anywhere else. It's linked to the burning of the Protestant martyrs in the 16th century. Almost the whole town is in a bonfire society. They spend all year making costumes, and then they go in these marches and stuff through the town, and they just chuck fireworks at each other. Rockets! Whoa, it's nuts. It's like D-Day, but with less health and safety. And yet, after about 5 minutes, your ears are just going, but you sort of get used to it. And these bonfire societies march past in costumes, and they've got wheelbarrows full of flames, and people are pouring petrol on it and plutonium on it. And I took a photo, one of my favourite photos I've ever taken, which I think's coming up now, of a child no more than 2 in a buggy carrying a flaming torch. It's magnificent. But in 2020, the Lewes bonfire night for the first time was cancelled because of the pandemic. And I thought, well, yes, I suppose that makes sense if you're going to hurl explosives at each other and get toddlers to carry bare flaming torches. You want to do it safely, don't you? And it's really common going around these towns for something to happen after a record and you think, oh no, I wish that had happened while I was there. I did one of these shows in Douglas in the Isle of Man. But in Douglas, after the recording, we went to this scuzzy little pub there. I loved it. I really loved Douglas. But there was this little scuzzy little pub after the show, and I was having a drink, and there was a couple of people that really were in a bit of a state, and there was one bloke just draped over the fruit machine, like just a terrible mess, and he's somehow hanging on. He was like, oh, And then a bloke said to me, "See him there?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "He's our Minister of Education." I love, there's another thing, right, about a sense of community. The most famous person, who would be the most famous person? People would probably go, oh, Rihanna, Kanye West, Donald Trump, I don't know. But the most famous people I've ever met have been people like this pork pie maker in Melton Mowbray who invites you in to talk about pork pies, and after an hour he's only covered the pepper. In Hastings, the most famous man there is a chap called Glenn who puts on gigs in his garden, and everybody in the room had been to his garden.
Has anyone been to my garden here?
And the most famous person in Portishead, outside Bristol, was a lad called Nigel. And look who you managed to get to turn on your Christmas lights in 2009. Do people know? Nigel from Homebase. And Nigel had won a local vote to turn on the Christmas lights as he was so popular on the checkout at home base. And I'd be brilliant if he'd turned on the Christmas lights and they just didn't work. And he went, "Oh, I got these from home base." But the most famous person I ever come across was a bloke called Horace, right? So I went to Finchley, North London, and I found out about Horace. He was this huge homeless man, very cheerful-looking bloke, and he very sadly died a few months before I got there. Lots of people had gone to his funeral because he was very famous in the area because he just always went up to people and said, "Good luck to you, sir. Good day to you, madam. Good luck to you, sir. Good day to you, madam." And he used to do that all day, all round Finchley. So everybody in Finchley knew Horace. So I got a picture of Horace. And when I put the picture of Horace up on the screen, the whole place was like, "Horace!" Like everybody just knew him so well. And then all the people in the audience started going, "Good luck to you, sir. Good day to you, madam." One bloke got up and he said, "I'll tell you what, Mark," he said, "honestly," he said, "one day I was in the supermarket, right at the checkout, and I could hear Horace going, 'Good luck to you, sir. Good day to you, madam.' I was watching him and he wasn't saying it. And I thought, what's happened? And he'd got a little tape thing. He'd got a little tape deck. And he must have taped it. And he must have thought, I can't be bothered to say it today, but I don't want to let people down. And he was taped it. And he was playing it, going, 'Good luck to you, sir.' And this is brilliant. I love Horace. I said, is that all he used to say? And they all giggled a bit, you know. And I said, what? It was like, I thought, this must be how our teacher feels when all the class is giggling and you don't know why. I said, what? And then a bloke said, he did say something else sometimes. I said, what? What is it? What did he say? And they all giggled again. And then the bloke went, well, sometimes he'd come up to you and go, off you. I know. Now, the thing is, islands can be the most brilliantly eccentric places. Like the Isle of Portland in Dorset, right? This is a wonderful place. There's a little causeway road that goes through it now, and you get there. It has an atmosphere of being an island, and it's very strange. And for example, you're not allowed to say the word rabbit. You think at first it's a joke, but you can't. It's really serious. It's a terrible swear word. Kids get sent home from school for saying it. Nobody quite knows why. So I thought, the last line of the programme it did go a bit AWOL. The last line of the programme was this. Oh, don't worry, Portland. I'm trying to celebrate a sense of community here. The last thing I'm going to do is ruin the whole series at the very, very end by coming to Portland and saying rabbit. It was just the most terrible thing. It was brilliant, though. I felt like one of these war reporters. So we recorded it at this big old military building at the top of the hill, and there was a bar there, and I was stood outside afterwards, and this couple come up, must have been in their 80s, and this chap, he was brilliantly suave, he had a sort of velvet jacket and a little cravat, and he said, "I'm glad you bloody gave it to them with that nonsense about rabbit. It's about time that they got over their silly superstition. Ha, 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 ha." And then he wandered off, and there was a piano there, and we were just sort of chatting, and then we heard him get up on the piano, and he started playing the piano and singing, "Run, rabbit, run, rabbit, run, run." While his wife was going, "You'll get us killed!" Went to Orkney, right, which is brilliant because it seems so naughty because it's like you've gone to the top of the country and then there's an extra little bit that you're sort of sneaking into that you're not allowed to go. And it was ruled by Vikings, so they've got this sort of strange sort of half Scottish, half sort of Norwegian accent. And then further up, even further, about 100 miles further, it's Shetland. And they've got this rivalry. And I did this interview with BBC Radio Orkney that must, at its peak, have a listenership of 1. And halfway through, out of nowhere, suddenly the presenter said to me, "Mark, I've got a joke for you." I said, "Oh, yeah, go on." He said, "How do you know that E.T. comes from Shetland?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "He looks like he does." See, islands are marvellous because if you live on an island, you tend to see the rest of the world as peculiar for not living on your island. So we went to Alderney, which is one of the Channel Islands, but it's this little tiny, it's 1.5 miles long, right? It's just 7 miles from France. There's just no regular ferries. To get the plane, you have to go to Guernsey, and you get in this like little 12 people squash in there. It's not the size, it's just so old. It's like someone saying, I'll give you a lift, and it's some old Ford Anglia and all the seats are ripped. The window flaps open while you're in the air, so the draft comes in, right? But what about this? I've just found out recently that throughout 2020, Alderney has had no cases of coronavirus. So everything there is still open, which is brilliant. Even the coronavirus has gone, how do I get there? I'm not going on that plane, it's deadly. But after a couple of days there, you get into a rhythm, which everyone appreciates, right? So we met this wonderful old bloke called Royston, who remembered having to leave in 1940 when the Nazis came, right? I asked him if anyone still speaks the Alderney language. Do you think there's any chance that it might be found somewhere and re-put together, you know?
Well, I'm trying to do that. I've done a bit of research, and the French teacher at the school said to me, look, why not try and resurrect it like they're doing in Guernsey and Jersey and teach it to the school children? And we've set up a patois club after school on Thursday afternoons. Oh, shit, I forgot to go.
He was a darling. He was such a nice man. So, 4 years later, I went back on a little holiday there, and I booked this little boat from Cherbourg. It's a tiny little boat. And on the day, the captain rang me and said, hello, I'm the captain of the boat. He said, when you get to the harbour, go to the end of the car park and give us a wave, and I'll wave back, and that's how you'll find us. And it was fine. And I'm fine with a boat. I really quite like a boat. But this thing, as soon as it got into the open sea, it just went up vertically. And I thought, what's happened now? And then just crashed sideways. And I'm sure we went upside down at least 4 times. Because I'm sure I saw the sea above us and jellyfish here. It was horrible. And then at one point, as it just went completely sideways and bounced up, the bloke went, you pay a lot of money at Disneyland for a ride like this, he said. I've never in my life so much wished I was on a plane with a hole in the roof. And I saw the captain the next morning, because you see everyone 3 or 4 times in the course of a day, and he said, I'm off to Guernsey in a minute. I said, all right. He said, I've got to take a coffin. An old fella called Royston passed away, he said. Lovely bloke, everyone loved him. Going to be a rough old crossing, he'd appreciate it, he said.
I only came back in 46. It was ruination, and it was pretty appalling. And after all that hope of coming back home, just to, it was heartbreaking. I think that generation were marvellous. They stuck it out and rebuilt the island, which was, I think something quite remarkable. And of course,
I think where you can make a mistake when thinking about community is assuming it's fixed, but that's clinging to old traditions. Community changes. I love the fact that Corby in Northamptonshire is full of people with Scottish accents because Scottish steelworkers went there in the 1930s for work. So I was sat with a bloke all evening in this club in Corby, and he's like, "Are you talking to me like that, aren't you? You're like a pint of heavy there." And eventually I said, "So which bit of Scotland do you come from?" He said, "I've never been to Scotland in my life, pal." I've been brought up in Corby, that's where I've lived all my life. What am I going to school for? I love that Bedford has this huge Italian community. There are thousands of Portuguese in Stockwell in South London. And I know this because I watched Portugal beat England once there in a World Cup match, and there was loads of Portuguese and English there. And then as soon as the game ended, they just put this music on and everybody just came out like dun 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 dun. And I thought this was brilliant. After about half an hour, I thought I'd better go. And I thought, what a marvellous day in the end. And I wandered along. About 100 yards further down the road, there was an old English pub. I was old English pubs, and there's two blokes just walking up and down, just angry. And one of them spotted me and went, "Oi, Mark, come over here. What's going on there again? Penalties every time, losing on the penalties. I've had enough. I've had enough!" And I said, "Oh, mate, there's no point in being angry, is there? You know, got to put up with it." And I swear, right, then he looked up and he could see 100 yards up the road all these Portuguese people and English people together. And he went to me, "Look at that. They're all up there dancing. If I go up there and chuck a brick at them, I'm the one who gets in trouble." I think after a while, most people start to know the people that they were complaining about, and people start to get on. It happens all the time, everywhere. The same people, they're all coming over here. Like we did one in Glastonbury, and in the 60s, that's where all the sort of zenny sort of people worshipping the spirit of wind, Bridget, the whatnot, chanty people. And now they all go, "Oh, I like them Rebbies now, they're all right, everybody gets on." Went to Hebden Bridge, which has got a huge lesbian community that went up there in the 70s, and now it's half old Yorkshire and half lesbians, and everybody gets on, and the old Yorkshire people are all fine. Oh, no, I tell you what, I never have to worry for someone to borrow a spanner off round here, I tell you that, man. New Malden's got this big South Korean community for a reason that no one can quite work out. Everyone's happy with it. Hastings has this endearing word for people who move in from London, which is filth, which stands for failed in London, try Hastings, which is quite sweet. In every area, the sense of community persists, even during the pandemic, because, and I'll leave you with this, good people, of assorted laptops and kitchens, even during the pandemic, because in every area there are little quirks known only to everyone in that town, and sometimes that town has a little moment of national glory. For example, there was the heartwarming moment during the Boris Johnson address in the pandemic when he said, While the majority have complied ipso facto with the rules, there have been too many breaches. And I thought that was a record-breaking sentence in British history, causing the greatest number of people ever to say one person's name at once, because 40 million people yelled at their television, "Oh, right, Dominic Cummings at Barnard bloody Castle!" A touching moment that brought us together as a nation. Thank you.
Mark Steele's in Town was written and performed by Mark Steele,
with additional material by Pete Sinclair.
It was produced in an empty room by Carl Cooper. It was a BBC Studios production.
I'm just looking at a blank laptop. There is about 30% of my head thinking that at any moment someone's going to come in here and say, "OK, Mr. Steele, if you'd like to come with us, the hospital has a bed waiting for you." Yes, Mr. Steele, I'm sure there are lots of people in Barnard Castle that are watching you. I'm sure there are. You'd like to take these pills and everything's going to be OK in a minute.